He would not stay silent. Inside the studio, chaos erupted. Executives whispered frantically. Managers argued over NDAs. The director tried to rewrite the story before it reached the public. They labeled her collapse as mild fatigue, hoping to bury the truth beneath PR statements and carefully crafted lies. But the truth was already slipping through their fingers. Crew members who had seen everything began whispering among themselves. A leaked audio clip surfaced online, capturing the director shouting for one more take, even as Mei Mei's voice cracked to exhaustion. Within hours, hashtags exploded across every social platform. Hashtag protect Yang Mei Mei. Hashtag industry abuse. Hashtag Yulong speaks out. Hashtag justice for Mei Mei. Fans and journalists demanded explanations. The studio panicked. But the one person they feared most was the one they couldn't control, Yulong. When he arrived at the hospital, Mei Mei was barely awake. Her eyes fluttered open when she heard his voice. Weak, fragile, but conscious. He sat beside her bed for hours, refusing interviews, ignoring calls, blocking reporters who tried to ambush him outside the hospital doors. Nobody understood why he cared so much, why he risked his career to stand up for her, why his fury burned hotter than anyone else's. But those who knew him intimately understood the truth. Years earlier, long before fame, Yulong had witnessed someone he loved break under similar pressure. A young actor with too much talent and too little support. He watched the industry chew her up and spit her out. He watched her spirit collapse piece by piece until there was nothing left. And he had been powerless then, too inexperienced to fight for her, too scared to speak out. He carried that guilt for years. And when he saw Mei Mei fall, it was like reliving that nightmare. This time, he refused to watch silently. With her lying weakly in the hospital bed, Yulong made a decision that sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. He confronted the studio executives directly. He demanded reduced working hours, mandatory breaks, fair treatment, psychological support for actors going through emotionally draining roles. He even threatened to walk away from a project if they didn't comply. The executives panicked. Sponsors worried. Producers begged him to reconsider. But he stood firm, unwavering, his voice steady even under pressure. Mei Mei, still recovering, heard about his confrontation from a nurse. When he returned to her hospital room, she looked at him with teary eyes. "You didn't have to fight for me," she whispered. "Yes," he replied gently. "I did." Their eyes held each other's for a long moment, full of unspoken truths, unspoken fears, unspoken feelings that neither of them dared to name. The industry tried to silence him, but the public had already chosen their side. And it wasn't the studios. Support poured in. Fans praised him for his courage. Reporters applauded his honesty. Mental health advocates called the incident a turning point for the industry. Unable to fight the rising pressure, the studio eventually issued a public apology, acknowledging the harm done. The director was suspended. New safety measures were introduced. And Mei Mei, though shaken, grew stronger through her recovery. When filming resumed weeks later, the atmosphere on set had completely changed. Crew members treated Mei Mei with newfound respect. Breaks were enforced. Emotional scenes were monitored carefully. And Yulong stayed close, not overprotective, but present, always watching, always ready to step in if she needed him. That night changed everything. Not just for Mei Mei, not just for Yulong, but for the entire industry. Some say it was a scandal. Others say it was a wake-up call. But those who truly understood called it something else entirely. A moment of truth. A moment that exposed the hidden darkness behind the bright lights. A moment that revealed the courage of a man who refused to stay silent. And a moment that brought two hearts closer in ways even they never expected. To this day, no one knows exactly what promises were exchanged in the quiet corners of that hospital room. No one knows the full story of the tears, the fears, the whispered words between Yulong and Mei Mei. But one thing is clear. They will never forget the night she fell, and the night he chose to fight. It began on a night that was never meant to become a headline. A night the production team hoped would blend quietly into the long list of exhausting filming days that actors endure without complaint. But fate had other plans. The tension had been building for weeks, tightening like a knot around the cast and crew, and on that particular night, under the harsh white lights of Studio 3, everything finally snapped. And it wasn't just a breakdown, it was an explosion of truth. A truth no one wanted the world to know. A truth they tried desperately to bury, until Yu Long stepped in. The filming schedule that week had been brutal. 16 hours every day, endless retakes, emotional scenes that demanded tears, heartbreak, and raw vulnerability, especially from the lead actress, Yang Mei Mei. She was known for her dedication, her quiet grace, her ability to deliver any emotion on cue. But even the strongest hearts break under pressure. And that night, hers reached its limit. The scene they were filming was supposed to be simple, at least on paper. A moment of betrayal, a shocking revelation, a fall to the ground in tears. But the director, notorious for pushing actors until their spirits bled, wanted more. Again, he kept saying, not enough. Again, feel it deeper. Again. His voice echoed harshly in the studio, slicing into Mei Mei's composure each time she reset herself, each time she forced her trembling body to perform once more. The crew members exchanged uneasy glances. They could see she was tired, more tired than she let on. Her hands shook when she reached for props. Her voice cracked of fatigue. Her knees wobbled every time she stood up for another take. But she pushed forward, determined to prove herself, determined not to disappoint, determined not to show weakness. And then it happened. Mei Mei took her position for the 12th take. The director shouted, "Action!" She inhaled sharply, stepped forward, delivered her line, and suddenly her face went blank. Her chest tightened visibly. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her hands felt her sides like wilted petals. And right there, in front of the entire crew, she collapsed. The fall was not dramatic or cinematic. It was terrifyingly real. A soft thud on the cold floor followed by silence, deafening silence. For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. The cameras kept rolling simply because no one had thought to yell cut, until a voice tore through the shock. "Mei Mei!" The shout belonged to Yu Long. He wasn't scheduled to be on set anymore. His scenes had wrapped hours earlier. He should have been home, resting, preparing for the next day. But something, perhaps instinct, perhaps concern, pulled him back to the studio. And when he saw her collapse, something inside him erupted. He rushed across the room faster than anyone could process. Crew members scrambled out his path, startled by the sheer panic etched across his face. He dropped to his knees beside her, lifting her head gently, tapping her cheek, calling her name again and again, but she didn't respond. Her breathing came in rapid, uneven gasps. Tears streamed from her closed eyes. Her skin felt cold, her body limp. It wasn't exhaustion anymore. It was a breakdown, a complete, uncontrollable physical and emotional collapse. And still, the director stood frozen, mumbling something about pushing through, something about finishing the take, something about professionalism. That was the moment Yu Long snapped. He stood up abruptly, fury coursing through him like fire. His voice thundered across the studio as he turned toward the director. "What were you thinking?" he shouted, taking a step forward. "Can't you see she's done? Can't you see she's breaking?" The director tried to defend himself, insisting Mei Mei had agreed to the intensity. But Yu Long wasn't listening. He stepped closer, closing the distance between them, eyes burning with rage. "She can't even breathe properly," he said, each word thick with anger. "And you want to keep shooting? Is this what you call directing?" The crew watched in stunned silence, afraid to intervene. Some had worked with Yu Long for years and had never seen him raise his voice. But today, he was no longer the calm, disciplined actor they knew. He was a man protecting someone he cared deeply for. The director attempted to regain control, raising his hands in a defensive gesture. "She needs to be strong," he muttered. "This industry is not for her." Yu Long cut him off before he could finish. "Strong," he repeated, his voice low but trembling with fury. "She has given everything. Every drop of strength, every ounce of emotion, and you still wanted more. You wanted her to give until she had nothing left. until she broke. And now look at her. Is that not enough for you? The director's face paled. The crew looked away. No one dared speak. In the midst of the confrontation, medical staff arrived. They carefully lifted Mei Mei onto a stretcher. Her breathing was shallow. Her eyes were still closed. Yulong followed them closely, refusing to step away, refusing to let her out of sight. Someone tried to stop him, reminding him that he had no authority over her medical treatment. But Yulong brushed him aside with a glare so sharp that even the producer swallowed his words. When the stretcher reached the ambulance, Yulong gently held her cold hand. For a split second, her fingers twitched, and in the faintest, weakest whisper, she said the words that shattered his heart. "I'm sorry. Sorry." The word that shouldn't have come from her lips. Sorry for collapsing. Sorry for not being strong enough. Sorry for failing expectations that were never hers to carry alone. Yulong inhaled sharply. His jaw clenched as he fought back the anger and guilt swirling inside him. "No," he said softly, squeezing her hand. "Don't apologize. Don't ever apologize for this." The doors of the ambulance closed, separating them for the moment, but the fire inside him did not die. It grew, it deepened, and as he stood there, watching the flashing lights disappear into the night, he knew one thing. The aftermath of the confrontation didn't end in the hospital. It didn't fade when the studio apologized. It didn't quiet down even after Mei Mei returned to set. If anything, the tension simmered deeper, silent but alive, because it was something the public didn't know yet, something the studio tried to erase, something even Mei Mei herself didn't realize until the pieces started falling into place. When she finally regained some strength, she was clear to continue filming on a lighter schedule. Makeup artists welcomed her back with soft smiles. Crew members offered warm words. But beneath the surface, she could feel it. Eyes watching her, whispers hovering in corners, a strange sense that not everyone was happy she returned stronger. Yulong noticed it first. He caught crew members exchanging cryptic glances. He overheard assistants whispering about what still wasn't supposed to get out. He even saw the director, who had been reinstated under strict supervision, acting nervously whenever he walked by. Something was wrong. Something bigger than the breakdown. Something deeper than a confrontation. One evening, after filming wrapped early to give Mei Mei time to rest, Yulong found a crew member sitting alone at the back of the studio, shaking with anxiety. Her name was Chun Rong, a junior lighting assistant who had been on set the night Mei Mei collapsed. "You shouldn't be out here alone," Yulong said gently. She looked up, startled, then her eyes welled with tears. "I've been trying to tell someone," she whispered, "but I'm afraid." "Tell someone what?" Yulong asked, voice steady. She hesitated, then handed him her phone. On the screen was a video clip, grainy, unsteady, recorded secretly from behind a stack of props. Yulong pressed play. There, in the dimly lit studio, stood the director, not yelling for another take, but arguing with the producer, and the words hit Yulong like a punch to the chest. "She's fragile," the producer whispered angrily. "Why you keep pushing that girl? If something happens to her..." "It won't," the director snapped. "She'll break. She'll cry. She'll give us what we need. It's good for publicity. Audiences love when actors suffer for the art." Yulong froze. The director knew. He knew she was exhausted. He knew she was at her limit. And he pushed her anyway. Not for the story. Not for emotion. But for public buzz. For headlines. For the illusion of authenticity. The video ended. Chun Rong wiped her cheeks. "I didn't know who to trust," she whispered. "But after what you did for her, I knew you should see this." That night, Yulong made a decision that would change everything again. He didn't confront the director privately this time. He didn't threaten to walk away. He didn't speak to the studio behind closed doors. Instead, he did the one thing no one expected. He told Mei Mei the truth. She listened quietly as he showed her the footage, her eyes widening with each passing second. When it ended, she didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She didn't collapse again. Instead, something inside her hardened. Something fierce. Something unbreakable. "They used me," she whispered, voice shaking with anger she had never allowed herself to feel. Yes, Yulong replied softly, but you're not powerless anymore. For the first time in her career, Mei Mei spoke up. She filed an internal complaint. She demanded a formal investigation. She requested protection for junior crew members who faced similar pressure but had no voice. And for the first time, she demanded the respect she had always quietly earned but never fought for. The studio tried to silence her. They offered compensation. They threatened her contract. They attempted to twist the narrative. But this time, they were not dealing with a timid actress who feared losing opportunities. They were dealing with a woman who had found her strength, and a man who refused to let her stand alone. The video leaked. Not from Yulong. Not from Mei Mei. Chun Rong uploaded it anonymously, unable to carry the weight of silence any longer. The internet exploded. Millions watched the clip. Millions demanded justice. And suddenly, the studio's carefully constructed silence shattered completely. Under intense pressure, they suspended the director permanently. They issued a public apology, not the rehearsed, polished kind, but a raw admission of wrongdoing. They promised safer working environments, mental health programs, and stricter regulations. And the world finally understood the magnitude of what Mei Mei had endured. But amidst all the chaos, something else bloomed, slowly, quietly, beautifully. Yulong and Mei Mei's bond deepened. What began as protection turned into understanding. What began as anger turned into something gentle. He walked her home after late shoots. She brought him ginger tea during long takes. They laughed more. They trusted more. And though neither spoke the words aloud, everyone could see the shift, the way he lingered near her, the way she relaxed around him, the way their eyes found each other even when the room was full. But they weren't ready to define anything yet. Life had thrown them into the storm, and now they were simply learning to breathe again. As filming neared its end, the cast gathered for a quiet wrap-up meeting. But the energy in the room was different this time, hopeful, inspired, awakened, because one actress found her courage, because one actor refused to stay silent, and because together they forced an industry to change. Mei Mei stepped forward to address the room, her voice steady, her eyes full of emotion. I survived because someone believed in me, she said. And I want us all to remember, we deserve respect, we deserve safety, and we deserve to be heard. The crew clapped. Some cried. And in the corner, Yulong smiled softly, proud of the strength she had finally shown the world. This wasn't just a continuation of a scandal. It was the beginning of a revolution. A reminder that behind every filmed tear is a real person with a real heart, one that deserves care, protection, and dignity. And for Mei Mei and Yulong, the ending wasn't heartbreak. It was hope, a soft beginning, a quiet promise, and a story the world would never forget. Now the only question left is, are you ready to witness what comes next? Because their journey is far from over. And trust me, the next chapter will shock everyone. Before you scroll, listen closely. If you want more shocking celebrity twists, untold K-drama secrets, real-life scandals, emotional narrations, and exclusive celebrity true stories just like this one, make sure you subscribe to K-Drama Spark right now. Hit that like button, smash subscribe, and turn on your notification bell so you never miss the next explosive update. K-Drama Spark is a home of true drama, true emotion, and true storytelling. Join the family. Your next favorite story drops soon.